Sky's
Hello,
Dash.
everybody. Welcome to the Uber Cordero Show for this Sunday. If you're joining us today, we're going to be having a wonderful conversation about gender dynamics. On the studio are young African millennials in different parts of the world going to talk about this conversation that we started last week, the last 2 weeks actually, about gender dynamics and how they are experiencing manliness as young people living in the 21st century. Now, I'm your host, Hugo Cordero, and through the next hour, we're going to be talking about this wonderful debate and having a conversation with a lot of smart young people from different parts of the world. Yes, one thing that I have to say, though, about this show is that uh, the main mission of this show is to break down complex discussion and make them usable for the street. And we hope that by doing these conversations, we are able to break them down, break complex issues down so they are usable and applied in streets in everyday life. But in order to do that, we need your support. So we need you to subscribe, we need you to share, and we need you to watch this show and talk to your friends about it. So welcome, gentlemen. Are you guys ready to talk about gender dynamics? Now, before we go forward, I'd like for you guys to introduce yourself. So whoever want to go first, go ahead and go first.
Okay, I think I'll just jump right in. My name is Christian Menze. I'm a Rust College alumnus. I'm currently based in Estonia. I'm studying my master's in international business at the illustrious Tallinn University of Technology, TAUTECH, and that's all about me.
So where's Rust College and where are you from,
So
Mr.
Rust
Menzi? Yeah?
College is Rust College is in Mississippi, Holy Springs, the USA, and TAUTECH is in Estonia, Tallinn, and I'm from Zimbabwe, Harare, Zimbabwe. Yes.
So what's unique about Rust College?
So I think the cultural dynamic of Rust College is an HBCU, or what is known as a historically Black college. It caters primarily to the needs of Black students who were ostracized throughout time, in the Southern America, and that's basically what Rust College is. It's an HBCU.
Thank you, Menzi. I'm glad to have you here. I'm glad you're joining us from Estonia. What's the name of the city you said?
I live in Tallinn, Estonia. It's the capital
Tallinn,
of Estonia.
Estonia.
And I'm glad to be here on the Uber Cordero show. It's been a pleasure, speaking and getting to dive into this conversation with all of you guys.
Thank you so much, Menzi. I'm happy to have you too. I've always wanted to have you in this show.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
All right. Who we want to go next?
Okay, so I am Jared Cordero. I'm currently based in Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And just to quick mention, I'm also a Ross College alumni. So Bearcats forever. I'm currently doing my graduate degree in um, planetary science. I'm doing climate modeling at Lehigh University, and uh, I'm glad to be on the Uber Cordero show. I'm looking forward to having interesting discussions in here.
Thank you, Jared, for joining. If you are first joining this show, you have to remember that Jared was the guy behind the scene. He was the one doing the video production the whole time we were doing the show. So now it's kind of an honor to have him on the front end of the show. So, Jared, what's unique about your two universities, Lehigh and the HBCU Ross College? Tell us a little bit more about it.
Oh, there are tons of differences. Ross College was a pretty small, just like Menzi mentioned, pretty small, probably 1,000 in students in population. HBCU, primarily black, about 99%, 0.9% black student. Very closely knit faculty, everybody. It was kind of like a family college type. At least that was the vibe that it gave me. And just like Menzi said, the primary purpose of Ras College is to just give education to those whom otherwise would not have had the opportunity to get that type of education. So they had students from kind of like interesting, I say interesting students from locations such as the south side of Chicago, rural Mississippi, New York, Bronx, Philadelphia, North Side, North Memphis. So it was really interesting interacting with the, African Americans and getting to know how, they live their day to day lives.
Yeah, the
And
struggle.
yeah, and the struggles they face on a daily basis, and that kind of opened my mind a lot in terms of understanding the racial issues in America and knowing my place and the role I play within the system. And Lehigh University, on the other hand, is it's what we call a PWI, primarily white institution based in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It's uh, also known as pseudo Ivies, closer to some of the Ivies, but it's not an Ivy League school. But it's full of, it's like right now, I think it's like 95% white in population, and it caters to middle class American. So,
Not necessarily middle class, upper middle class America, right?
yeah, because it's a very, like, the students that attend here, they're very different in terms of they come from places with money. People they come from money. So conversations you have in the pavements are very totally different from the conversation I would have had with someone from, let's say, Russ College. I don't know if Maisie remembers this experience, but we met a student in Russ College along, but that was back in 2017, who'd never seen an iPhone. I don't know, do you remember this conversation? And this guy was from the rural parts of Mississippi, and he's like, "Oh, he saw my phone," and I'm like, "Oh man, is that a knife? What type of phone is that? I haven't seen this type of phone before." So it's just interesting to see that, okay, this guy lives in America, but he's never seen a phone like that before, and it was just so mind blowing just to know that. So those are some of the difference in terms of education and, you know how the syllabus is structured. That's also different because the syllabus in Rush College is tailored to help students who are coming from weak academic backgrounds. Unlike at Lehigh, they expect you to come from a very well off, let's say high school. So you are expected to know certain things. So they just, think you're smart. So that's some of the difference. Yeah.
We'll get on to this, how this shapes about how your thoughts today. Part of my inquisitiveness on your background is to kind of form, to know how your backgrounds inform how you think about some of the issues that we're going to talk about. So next, Bosco. Yeah.
Thank you, Uber Cordero. I am Don Bosco, and I'm originally from Kenya, where I was serving as a youth leader. I was heading some of the youth organizations in Kenya. But right now I live in the US, where I attend Principia College in Elsa, Illinois. And I'm so excited about this show and the topic we want to be discussing today. Thank you.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your college, because everybody's talking about their college. So you might as well talk.
Oh yeah, I attend one beautiful college in Elsa, Illinois. Like I said, we're just next to the Mississippi River, where we have beautiful views of the river. I mean, when it floods and when it's not flooding. And I also understand that Uber Cordero is an alumni of Principia College.
Panther strong.
Yeah, so I mean, currently I'm considering a major in computer engineering. Yeah, and it is a beautiful place to be at and to study at.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, thank you guys for coming in. I appreciate you again for sparing your time. So I do have a couple of questions that I wrote down, maybe not a couple, a little more than a couple. And I want us to get into these conversations because this is important. One of the things that is out there in the street is that these gender dynamics are kind of a hot debate. Like people are taking it super personal, and sometimes it's thought of as a disruptive society. And last 2 weeks we had a lot of women, some women, our friends and sisters and partners, talk about their experiences growing up in African households as women, right? So I want to know about the experiences of young men in Africa growing up in a household as men. So performing manliness in an African household, and then you're transplanted into a US space of different social background and how you navigate manliness in those different spaces. This is what I'm interested in. I want to know what your experiences are. So you've introduced yourself, and first thing I want to ask Manzi is, where did your definition of masculinity come from? When was the first time you became conscious of being like, I'm a masculine body?
I think I must have been 15 or 14,
Means you want to be a
and
little louder. You're low
I
on the
think
tone.
I must have been 14 or 15, and my father was basically the person whom I tried to model my life, particularly the way that I conduct myself and the way that I handle myself. I tried to um, imitate him in so many ways. And he's the one who influenced my understanding of masculinity and what it means to be a man. But more importantly, it was my grandfather who sat with me sometime in 2007 before his passing. And in the months leading to his passing, he mentioned some of the most foundational aspects that really form who I am. And they were three principles in which he defined what a man should be. A man should be a person who is defined by their principles, a person who is responsible, but ultimately a person who is accountable for their action. So being a principled man who say, I will do X, Y, and Z because it goes according to what I believe in. And two, I am responsible for my actions. I'm responsible for who I am, what I do, and ultimately maybe for my family or for somebody else. But the most important thing, though, and the most, perhaps I think, the most inward looking thing was the area of accountability. Like when you've messed up, are you accountable for your actions? How do you reconcile yourself to your wrongdoings and all those things? So I think my grandfather and my father are the two most important people who have shaped my understanding of manhood. And it's defined by these three principles, that is principle, accountability, and responsibility. That is my understanding of manhood.
Man, that, I've never had somebody put it up together like that. Well, it's really deep, right? I'm gonna probe you a
Yeah.
little further, but let's first go around. Yeah. So, Don Bosco, tell us what you think about this. Yeah.
Well, my idea of masculinity was more of defined by the culture, the social framework in which I grew up. And unlike Menzi, I was I was conscious about being male or being a man or being a boy as early at a very tender age, as early as I think 5 years old. And it was more defined by how what you do, how you speak, how you walk, or even the people you relate with. And this was solely dependent on your sexual orientation. And this is at least for the African context. Like the biological definition of sex, if you are assigned male at birth, there is how the society expected you to speak, how the society expected you to walk, or even the people you are supposed to relate with, or even how you're supposed to go about things. And an interesting one is that maybe you were playing and you were hurt, and then you when you're hurt as a child, you are, I mean, it's okay to cry because you are in pain. But the society, the framework in which I grew up will tell you, don't cry like a girl. Like boys don't cry like that. So that is the point where the definition of masculinity was, I mean, starting to get clear for me. Yeah. Thank you.
Jared, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting what Bosco said, because especially in most African cultures, as you grow up, there's certain expectations that you're expected to. Uh, you're expected of. For example, the behavior, like how you behave, uh, how you dress, how you communicate, which chores are assigned to you within the family, really help shape up your understanding of masculinity. For example, personally, my personal experience, that I was one of those kids that you would quote unquote say crybabies every time, and people would say, "Oh, you're crying like a girl." So you just got you thinking like, okay, this is how men should be. So that really shaped your understanding, and kind of it gets instilled in your brain like, okay, as a man I should be able to, I'm not supposed to do this. But other aspects of how I understand masculinity is that I always saw my dad going out, seeking for his family, providing for his family, always coming back with something. And that, yeah, kind of instilled this idea, as a man you have to provide. That's that you have to provide, and if you are not able to provide, then your manlyhood is in question, because what are you contributing to? So and so such thing is still instilled in me, right? Even to date, I feel personally, I feel like as a man, you should be able, if you have a family, you should be able to provide. If you don't have a family, then you have the responsibility to provide for yourself, and to provide for others if you choose to, or if and to help society as a whole. And this does not mean that kind of women are not, you know expected to provide for society. It was just something that was more pushed to the man. You have to provide. If you don't provide, then you are a failure. So this is some of the concepts that shape my idea of manliness. So behavior, how you behave, as for example, for me, it was a lot of behavior. How you respond, like you would say, like as a man, you should not, like for example, when you are arguing with something and there are these responses, so as a man you should not engage in long drawn argument, like one would do. And sometimes they're really good questions you are asking, they are really important arguments. Sometimes somebody steps on your toe, as a man, the society expects you to retaliate back, and the way, or they expect you to do that, is to walk up or maybe slap that person because that person has crossed the boundary. That's how they expect you to do. But if a more, you know calmer way of doing it is just have a conversation with this dude. But that is it's deemed as you're being quote unquote womanly, and that's not tolerated. And actually, you'd be you'd be really be criticized for doing that. And people would say, "Oh, you talk too much. Your wife will not stay with you for long." So stuff like it's very very interesting, and that's why you know yeah, that's all I can say about that.
You guys have all said a lot of interesting things to ponder, and one of them is just like this main debate in scholarship about agency and structure. So agency is the potential of change from individuals, right? But the structure is the collective, is the institution that is pre-programmed to shape how individuals uh, perform certain things. So in describing your backgrounds, it seems to me that it suggests that in this type of household that you're describing, with the exception of Benz's narration, there's a little bit of usurping that sense of agency and usurping of the individual agency from manhood. And when that agency is usurped, then it's kind of defined by societal expectation. And that kind of leaves out, is segregating in itself. It segregates those who can meet that demand, right? And those who cannot meet what society has kind of outlined, like the template of manhood, they get really crushed, right? And I'm
Yeah.
sure you guys know stories of this, right? You want to share some?
Yeah, that's very interesting what you mentioned, because what society expects of of a man. For example, in most African cultures, it's very, very interesting. As a man, you're expected at a certain age, you're expected to be to have a wife and to be married and start a family. And if you don't do that by a certain age set by your ancestors or whatever, whoever set these deadlines, then your manlyhood comes into question, you know. And people are really curious on why you have not achieved what is expected of you, and that is in itself is very, very interesting, and it's something that we should actually dig deeper into why that is so, you know.
Yeah,
And
but
go
yeah,
ahead, man.
just to add on to that, I think, you know, for me, the way that I understand society is that society is basically a system of averages. What is average? What is
Hmm.
agreed upon by everyone? So sometimes to be part of that strata that is, deemed to be average, you have to deny yourself certain,
Hmm.
um, personal views or personal, experiences. Let's suppose you are someone who's not into the idea of getting married. For some reason, you want to be by yourself for the rest of your life. Within the African context, you probably will be an outcast, right?
Yeah.
But and that is, one of the things that I really have an issue with, particularly with when it comes to tolerance. Like, where is the tolerance for personal personal decisions for what I as an individual would like, and trying to be an outcast, trying to be an outlier, trying not to fit into the defined parameters of what manlyhood is or what masculinity is, will basically it, sometimes it will basically result in you being maybe rejected by the entire society, and you'll be you know just one of those people who are by themselves, and it's really unfortunate. Yeah, that's all I want to say. Sometimes.
Wow. Bosco, what do you got?
Yeah, I wanted to like um stamp on what Jared was sharing, that it's like the society, there is some council of elders who sat down in the medieval age to decide on how things are going to be done. And then there's decisions in light of their civilization, these decisions that they made, or this set of norms and cultures or rules, are carried forward into modernity or the modern civilization. And now we are gauged according to the standard of the 14th century, yet we are in the 21st century. So you realize that if you don't, like, for example, there is a book we read. There is a book we read in high school for the English set books, and it was giving light about one tribe or one ethnic group in Kenya, and they were arguing. There is a line that argues that the sun should not rise for the son of Ramogi still asleep. Like, in the African context or in the societal context, if you are not able to wake up in the morning, and if you're not able to, work hard and be in the farm for 12 hours, then you are a weak person. Or if there is war and you cannot be at the forefront of the war and go and fight to protect the community, then you are a weak person. So this these expectations are like contrary to what is really happening today, because not everybody has the strength to go to the farm and work and do the toiling. Not everybody has the courage to hold a gun and go fight, be in the military. So if we are really going to define our culture or define masculinity in terms of some preset rules by our ancestors, then we are misguided, because the time has changed and we need to like address it according to our current era and generation. That is what I think.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting what you're talking about. Um, uh, I think we have to bring this topic back to what it is to be masculinity. And while your contribution is really interesting, I do think we have to situate it within this conversation of modern iteration of masculinity. But
Yeah.
just a quick response to what you said, which is really true. The idea that some old notions of masculinity are archaic and outdated is not conclusively true,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
The idea of that's what we're talking about. Toxic masculinity is a relatively recent phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that African societies in the ancient past were so repugnant and obsessed with toxic masculinity. It is that they were accommodative to different expressions of manhood
Mm-hmm.
in so sophisticated ways that uh, women in most African societies were more empowered than women in most other societies in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell you a story in West African part, especially Ghana and what we call the Biafra and Bight. That is the West African coast. We have the British Victorian men coming there around 1840, 1860s, and they come out and they want to negotiate with the chiefs. Guess who is chief? The chiefs of this land are women. And then that's just women, the middle-aged women, bare-breasted because it's damn hot there. So they just, right? And
Yeah.
they want to negotiate with this Victorian man. And if you know about Victorian society in England, it is very conservative. And it places women in hidden spaces where they're covered to the toe. And they're not to be seen. They're not even to read books. Their whole idea, if you read Jane Austen's novel, is to be prepared to be married by gentry, mostly war making in other places.
Okay.
Pride and Prejudice and the rest. I'm trying to get situate this conversation to tell you that this toxic, what we call toxic masculinity, with these rigid notions of provision, security, machoism, and Casanova, it is a fairly recent phenomenon. It's less than maybe 150 years old, but it is so entrenched now that people think it has always been, and it is often justified under the auspices of African tradition. But it is a myth, right?
Yeah, I
The
think
myth is that African society was super fluid on gender. They were super fluid on many things that we do not want to confront, including gay rights.
Yeah.
But
And
that's not the topic of
I
the day.
was I
Huh?
was I was
Huh?
I was very categorical in my explanation of what I understand by masculinity, because
Yeah.
I said something that there were expectations on the people you were supposed to like
Mhm.
associate with, or even the people you were supposed to like. Like
Yeah.
an example is, if you are a boy growing up and you are not like so close to ladies, people will question your masculinity. They will question if you are okay. Okay. And you're bringing an interesting thing to me about, I mean, male chauvinism and toxic masculinity, which I am looking at a different lens right now,
Mm.
because the definition of manliness is losing ground by the shifting gender roles that we are experiencing right now, and the gender imbalance that we don't want to like approach, because it started out that the girl or the females were being oppressed. But I am here, without fear of contradiction, I'm here to say that that was extrapolated and it has gone to the extreme, and now it is not the girl child or the females who are being oppressed, but the boy child is actually being oppressed. Okay. And like somebody was saying, that the girl child was raised while the boy was just left to grow. So the conversation is now shifting from women not being in significant positions and not being supported, to men being, not for lack of a better term, neglected.
I hear you. Thank you for raising this conversation. You brought us back to the topic. Now, wow, that's a lot. Let's process it for a minute. Um, let's go by defining, and then we're gonna circle back to what Bosco said. Menzi, what's your definition of feminism? What does it mean when folks like Chimamanda Adichie, I'm sure you're familiar with Chimamanda. She said we can all be feminists. I asked this question because in understanding it, we were gonna respond to some of the concerns that Bosco has raised, and I want to hear what you guys are thinking about it, like in true reflection, like from your hearts.
Well, I think the true definition of feminism is light years. There's a light year difference from what is being pushed by the media.
Mm.
In the sense that the media, the true definition of being a feminist is apparently appears to be mostly is to rather balance the gender inequalities that have existed for years, or the perceived gender inequalities, particularly in the workforce. That's where I see it for the most part. And it's not necessarily, the most convincing definition of feminism. For me, I think the definition of feminism is understanding the struggles that have been faced by women in all aspects of life. That is politically, that is economically, that is within the social space, as well as within any other area of the economy. I think that is what true feminism is. But when it only like the media seems to be pushing only when it comes to job inequality, and that seems to be the definition that most people understand to be feminism. Particularly, I think in America, feminism is equated maybe to giving jobs that are predominantly male dominated to females, but those jobs have to be the good jobs, particularly the office jobs. Because I'm sure people are not pushing for women to become, for us to have more women bricklayers. But that is the definition that is wrong. That is probably the wrong definition. But I think equality in all aspects of the economy. Yeah, that is feminism for me. And hearing the cries of the girl child, from domestic violence, from being from all the the glass ceilings in the corporate world, to the political underrepresentation, to educational equality, all those areas. For me, that is feminism. Yeah, I think that's all I can say for that.
I like that you focus a lot more on the idea that focusing on economics is limited.
Yeah,
and people are hypersensitive about the economics of feminism, and forgetting that it is a whole much more expansive idea than what is suggested by the economics.
Yeah, but the media seems to be pushing that side of feminism because that's the one that is relatable to most people. And I think because now we live in a very capitalist world, anything that brings money seems to have high ground than anything that does not. So societal equality and all those things that they tend to be kind of like not as pronounced as anything with an economic benefit.
Good point, Manzi. Anybody want to chime in? Jared, you haven't spoken in a while. Huh?
Okay, so I don't know. My understanding is, of feminism is that it's very simple, actually, and it's just recognizing that men and women should should be equal in all aspects. That's it's as simple as such. And I think I'm gonna back Menzi here. I think the narrative currently being pushed, especially in the general media, is that okay, it's primarily economics, like okay, jobs, or maybe or sometimes gender roles also is being pushed there. But if you think about it, what are we really trying to do? Are we being feminist in such a way that we are pitting women, or are we actually trying to solve the problem? That's the question that I've been asking myself over the past 3 months. Because if you say, for example, um what's a good example that I can give? Okay, Menzi mentioned the bricklaying job, right? So you're gonna give someone, you ask, okay, how many people want to be bricklayers? If you have 10 uh, 10 people, and you ask, okay, how many people want to be bricklayers? Majority of people who will raise their hands are probably gonna be lean towards both sides. Like they're both gonna be males and males and females in the group. Prefer mostly primarily because of maybe the economic situation, right? So you're gonna have, for example, four men are gonna be, okay, I'm gonna take the bricklaying job. Three women are gonna say, okay, I'm gonna take the bricklaying job. So you get that 50-50 based on their needs and based on the environment that they grew up in. So that's also plays a role in the feminism, the environment that if you're calling yourself a feminist, the environment that you grow up in will determine how you define being a feminist a lot. So that also should be considered, because for in the US, okay, it makes sense to behave by economics of it, because okay, there are no hard in the Americans, there are really no what we could call really hard cars in the American society. It's an industrialized nation in the first. But if you take this to the third world countries, for example, what does it mean to be a feminist in the third world country? We do have your sister go and make, let's say, charcoal in the rain in the middle of the night, wake her up in the middle of the night, in the sense that you're being a feminist and everything is equal. Does that really make sense? You get what I'm talking about? So I think as we are defining feminism, we should also understand different economic stages that different cultures are in. That's very important, because that will determine the type of jobs or the quality of job, or how jobs are spread up within the genders, or even the gender card. Uh, when I was growing up, I personally I felt like, especially in the household that I grew up in, the issue, I felt like me and my sisters were basically being treated equally. My father used to wake us up every morning. Everyone used to go go and do farm work all in the morning, without really, without any consideration whether you're male or female. The difference was, after we do that generalized farm work in the morning, at around, we come back maybe at 10 a.m. Now that's when the generals will kick in, because uh, you know women are more efficient as towards doing what we call them, home homestead role, general things that goes around the homestead, like cleaning, cooking, uh stuff like that. And that doesn't mean that these roles are not they're not important, or they're like they're wrong to do. It's that over time, as we have progressed, society has made in such a way that, okay, man, okay, after we do the farm work, we got sent to look after cows, because okay, that's somehow that's how things have always been. But if you think about it, does that make it right that women remained home and took care of home business, and men went out to look after cows? You can say no, it's not wrong. Why were men being sent away and women staying at home? Well, a person might look at, okay, well, women are efficient in doing this thing, and men are also efficient in doing this thing. Doesn't make it that, okay, you staying at home means that you are less than the other. It's just a matter of efficiency. And what I would say to this is that I think it depends on your thought process on how you, if you are actively choosing to deny women opportunities by having them stay home and say, okay, you can't do it. If a woman say, okay, I want to go and look after cows, and you say no, you can't go look after cows because you can't do it, then you have a problem. But in the household I grew up in, actually, I remember once or twice, if a lady wanted to go out and look after cows, they went. But most of the 9 times out of 10, they chose to remain home. So
I wanna push back a little bit, Jared. I want to
okay,
push back on. I know you're right because the choice argument is accurate, and the choice is good. I just want us to think about who gets to construct these notions, and I also want us to think about the idea um, that even if people make a choice and they do not have full information, then then that choice is valid because that's a market anomaly. Mainly will know this from capitalism. If there is no access to information, that market is not functioning. It is an imperfect market in a capitalist system. And most of the time, we do realize that there is limited information on what is available for women. There is also a lot of ignorance on the part of men about the potential of women to do certain things. And as we move towards an industrial age, the need for physical labor lessens. The point which most feminists are making here is the recognition of the contribution of women and the choice to make this decision is taken over by the gatekeepers in society. And it requires not just institutional change. It doesn't require an institutional or legal change. It requires a whole reorganization of how people think. And that's what most here, that's what most people are lacking in understanding that you can change the law, you can change society as long as you do not change how you think. Whether you see a woman as a lawyer or as a cop or as a president, and you think it's okay, just like you see a man in the US, mostly middle-aged man, white man doing certain jobs, and you just don't even question it. The moment you question it in your subconscious, the moment you question their authority, their capability, their competence, then it means that the whole transformation of how we have internalized masculinity to equate competence. This is what feminists are advocating for.
yeah, and I understand that. The point I'm
Yeah.
trying to make is that that's why I raised the question. Okay, you can look the story that I was telling. You can look at it in two ways. Is it right for the woman to stay at home and take care of the home business, or is it or a man to go out and look after the cows? Is it right or wrong? Well, you can look at it in two ways. You know, you can tell, okay, well, the women chose to stay at home first because they didn't have, like you say, the opportunity or the knowledge to choose what they wanted to do. You know, you can look at it that, and that would make it wrong. Wrong in the sense that, okay, the men in that society are ignorant, thereby they're not offering these women the choices they need, or the society in general is ignorant of these rules. For example, let's go back to the post colon I can't pronounce this word all the time, whatever. Post
Pre-colonial.
pre yeah, pre-colonial African society. Okay, before pre-colonial African society, we know very well that most of these African cultures were really what would define now as, I would call them feminists outright. And the reason I would do that, because we know from, although the history is not written, but from passed down knowledge, that women held positions of authorities, like you mentioned, in the Luo community. The Mikai, in fact, who is the first wife, had the authority even to fire the husband, and fire like divorce, chase him out of the homestead if the husband brings, quote unquote, does not or is not quote unquote manly enough. You get what I'm saying? Manly in the sense that cannot provide or goes outside of the marriage. Although this is a polygamous society, but even in a polygamous society, there were rules within that you can go outside of your, of the wives you marry and do business. But the Mikai had that authority to do and these powers to kind of keep these systems in place and these laws in place. Or I don't think it's right even to call them laws. Let me call them norms, cultural norms. So what I'm trying to say is that even though kind of being anti-feminist is something that, like they say nowadays, every man is kind of, they say every man is kind of an anti-feminist feminist
No,
in
I've never had that, Jared.
Hold
Not everybody that. Yeah, but
what
let's hear what Bosco has to say.
what
Huh?
everybody say, and if you don't recognize that, then you are part of the problem, because this is the point here. You as Uber Kodoro,
Mm.
you have some ideas that you are based on the culture that you grew up in, that automatically makes you biased towards women in certain roles. True or false?
Yes, but the point is to unlearn some of these things.
But that's exactly what I'm defining as not truly being anti-feminist, but not being fully a feminist. Let me correct that.
Oh,
Okay,
So
let's Bosco come on in. I want to hear what Bosco is saying. Bosco, how do you define feminism and how is it? Do you think everybody can be feminist?
my understanding of feminism has always been biased, and the reason why it's biased is because of the how it was presented to us. Because most feminists, or most people who profess to be feminists, come off as pointing fingers at men, that you are the architects of our predicament as women, that you are the people who have made us what we are, and that because of, they're doing a blame game thing. But I think I would have the feminists, or these people who brought up this movement, revise their ideas. And if not revise their idea, revise the packaging of their ideas so that it is palatable and receptible to the people. Because look at it. If I would have them change their idea in this way, I would have them not call themselves feminists, but call themselves like humanitarians. Because the baseline, it all boils down to, the gender identities are things that come after we have become human beings. You realize that this conversation can be extrapolated to being male and female and even transgender. Okay, which is another conversation that we have to accommodate as a generation and as a civilization. Okay, so I would have these people revise it and become humanitarian, because each gender is fully human, and both of these genders, both male and female, or even transgender, they all represent the completeness of humanity, and all of them bring an essence of a full human being. But at the same time, they are very different in their interests, or even in how they look, or even in how they, how they appear, or the things that they like. So the problem I have with the feminists we have these days is because they are extremists. Like, they're becoming like jihadists. Okay, like people who take the jihadists who take religion to the extreme. They take the idea of women being oppressed and being sidelined to the extreme, such that the males are being also sidelined. They're also lagging behind right now. So I would have them revive.
I don't think that is necessarily true, because when we use the word feminism,
Yeah.
When you understand the meaning, that's not the agenda. And it's like saying this. This is how I will talk about it. This is an open conversation. You're free to disagree with me, and I'm free to
Okay.
disagree with you. When you say Black Lives Matter, right?
Yeah.
People get rounded up, right?
Yeah.
Because they say, oh, you should say all lives matter.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Huh? The question here is, in this moment, is
Yeah.
this person whose neck is on the line? Not everybody, just this person.
No.
I recognize, right? Let me finish up my thought.
What boss
I
is?
recognize every humanity.
Yeah.
But for this moment, on this particular issue, I recognize this moment. Now, this is how to bring our feminism. Feminism is a cry for equality.
Yeah.
And we
Why?
can all be feminists. I
Look at that.
can be feminist. I actually identify as a feminist myself. And
Hold
I'm
up.
on a spectrum. So I'm working towards improving my expression. Let me just finish my thought. And let
I
me
have a
just
question for you just before you. I have a question for you. If you are
yeah,
saying that it is a quest for equality, okay,
yeah.
why was it not called? I mean, melism, or for lack of a better word. Why?
No, because I'm gonna get to that.
Feminism? Can we
Okay,
not have
I'm gonna get to
neutral
that.
ground for it?
I'm gonna get to that. What I'm thinking about here is, you can't tell me to say all lives matter
Yeah.
when somebody has his neck on me.
Okay.
It is knee on my neck, right? At this
Okay.
moment, that's all. No lives, not all lives matter. At this moment, is that person whose neck is on the line.
Okay.
His life matters because you want to breathe. This is the same call about feminism. When we take away this thinking, the thoughts about endangering, putting women in positions that their lives are at risk, for example, access to abortion. It's not in a conversation when they're being battered by women, by men in their household, limited access to education, limited access to all these challenges, just a toxic environment in which women cannot go out alone at night in most cities, including your very same city in Estonia. This is a problem of the society. It's not a human, it is a humanitarian issue, okay? Because women constitute about 50% of people in the world.
What about
But it
what,
is
what
specific to the women. Okay. Now let's talk about the other question you're talking about, which I really do respect but disagree with. There is no feminist movement in the world that is out to hurt men. And I have 3 points to tell you why, and then I'm out of this conversation. I'll let Manzi jump in. One is that the idea of access to opportunities for women is a result of long history of exclusion of women from economic and political institutions. It is a process that started out in 1980s and gained a lot of ground in Africa in the 1990s after the Beijing Women Conference to include women through affirmative action, because most of our men in African spaces and in the world could not even let their women open bank accounts. This was a movement. People had to go to conference in Beijing to tell them, oh man, it's a good idea to let your wife have a bank account, to have your sister own property. Men didn't even think about it.
Uber Cordero?
You had to go to some conference. So
What I'm
let me
saying.
just also one point, including women in economic performance. And that action has really opened a lot, changed societies for the better. I'm not regretting it. The second part of it I want to tell you about. When you do affirmative action, it means you open the doors for people who had previously been excluded from such opportunities. Yes, there are going to be consequences, and you have to be comfortable with that consequence. But that's not the whole point. With more inclusivity, let's say if your house, you have a sister, and she gets an opportunity and your brother loses that opportunity, it is still a family win. Just redistributed.
Uber
So
Cordero.
that's
I'm saying is,
So can I finish? Then you can talk. Then the other thing is the idea that women are winning. If it is causing so much angst and anxiety among millennial African, then it tells us that this conversation about gender equality hasn't even begun. And I rest my case.
Okay, I think Uba, what Bosco is trying to say here is I don't agree with everything that Bosco said, but I can understand where his point is coming from. And what Bosco is trying to say is that even though we're talking about feminism, the way we're talking about it is not really accurate. It's like having a conversation about race, but only with only black people in the audience. You're not helping anyone. You need to talk about race with to people who actually are doing the damage. So if you come to Ross College and start talking about race issues, you're not helping anybody. Okay, although you will be helping people who kind of didn't know what's happening to them, are probably triggering some thoughts that they've never had before, which could be beneficial, but it's not helping. So I think the feminist movement should be inclusive, very, very inclusive, be very welcoming, and include men in these conversations, in all these types of conversation. Do not shun men away, but welcome them in so that they can learn about about their privileges as men and about their effects and what they can do to change. That's why I was bringing the term that's called anti-feminism, which you claim doesn't exist. It actually exists, and anti-feminism results in if you are championing only other forms of rights towards women and you are excluding others, then you're being anti-feminist in such a way that, okay, if you are okay, women should have equal pay, you are okay with that. But if I say that women should also be allowed to have sexual rights, then you are against it, and you are running and hiding in the corner. Then you are being anti-feminist, because truly, if we dig deep, you are not allowing women to express themselves fully. So in that sense, you are being anti-feminist. So what I'm trying to say, the thing about it, let me just give me a little time here to just finalize my thought process. Feminism is all about equal rights and equal opportunities across the board between men and female and women, right? We all agree to that point. The problem comes into the nitty gritty details on how this should be discussed in society, and how the movement, or how some people or communities are dissatisfied with the movement, because some people feel like, okay, the feminist movement is actually targeting men. That's how some people are feeling. I don't feel that way myself, but I understand why they feel that way, because sometimes you hear, not really all feminism, but some feminists are really actually very harsh. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. They'll say, okay, men's are dog, we don't want to hear anything, you need to shut up, you've had since creation until now to talk, you've had your opportunity. Now that's not helping anyone.
No, but that's called radical feminism.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
but
about.
That doesn't have to capture the whole conversation. Menzi, what do you think?
Yeah,
how is it playing out in Europe?
Well, I've only been in Estonia for 7 months, and all I can tell you is Estonia is run by females. From the current, by females, like the president right now is females. Most of my professors are females. Most of the bus drivers, they're females, and they control everything, which is I think any person who's qualified to do anything, is better than a person who isn't, regardless of their sex or their gender.
Mm-hmm.
And my understanding of feminism is basically shaped by society, just like everybody else. But with the exposure that I've had, like being around the world, I think people have to be, particularly within the African setting, we have to let go of the old idea and the old lie that men or women are better at certain things than men are. Let merit be the only qualifier. And when that happens, we create a more equal society. That's what. Yeah, that's what I think. So I think it is true that everyone can be a feminist, but sometimes that requires one to let go of the position that they hold. Let's suppose a young female coming out of the University of Zimbabwe, per se, is challenging a stronghold CEO for his position who's been there for 20 years, but he knows nothing, right? That person deserves a chance. But by virtue of them being a female, being young, they're sort of like discriminated against. And I think that's what feminism is all about. Let merit be the only qualifier. And I think that what should be done in all across board. I mean, the conversation about how feminism is being packaged and being, put forth by radical feminists is a whole different conversation. But I think for now, merit should supersede everything else, regardless of gender.
I agree with that. I think merit is very, very important. And like they say, the outcomes, you should judge you by the outcomes of your, of your dates, not by your gender or how you look like.
Let me ask Bosco what he's thinking.
Okay. I mean, I agree with most of the things that you have said. I agree with Menzi and I agree with Jared, but I have a problem with Uber Cordero's model. When he's
What is my model?
when he is saying that whose neck is on the ground, we are like treating this problem situationally. Okay, like we are like just treating the top part that we can see, but we are not treating the root, which has a potential of growing in another form. And this is what I mean. When I was growing up as a little boy, attending a public primary school, there are these organizations that came to our schools. First of all, this is what we were told. I would hear my mother tell my sisters, don't play with boys. Boys are destroyers. If you're seen talking to a man there, they will ask you, what are you saying with that man? When these organizations come to school, they only talk to girls. They segregate them somewhere and say, this is a girl talk, okay? And the man has always been depicted as an enemy. Well, they were dealing with a problem that was situational. But right now, with the current regime and with the current how things are going, this thing is flopping. That is something Uber Cordero doesn't want to hear. But the truth is, these things are changing. And over time, we are all going to have a different conversation of men now must have a movement. And this is for example, there are like scholarships, or even you're applying for something. They even write it there very clearly that if you are a woman, it is good to apply. Okay, look at it. In my government, in the structure of my government, there is the youth fund, which is for people 18 years old to 35 years old. It includes all people, whether you are male or female. When you get to 35, when you go beyond, as a man, there is nothing in store for you. But there is something in store for women, that there is the women fund. In the same structure, we have people in government. We have all the other positions of governance where anybody can run, whether it is MP or even anything, anybody can run. But then there is also another one called women rep. Yes, I know that they have said that anybody can be a women rep, whether you're a man or a female. But I'm questioning why it has even to be there in the first place. Because if you extrapolate it, it's going to bring a problem. And the problem is already there, Uber Cordero and everybody here. The problem is men are losing their space. They're losing most of their abilities. And the problem comes, and now we're having discussions like men's conference. We're having what I call the Mumama syndrome, where boys, because of the opportunity, look at it. You are going to school with a lady, and if a lady gets 365 marks in an exam, they go to another school, a better school than you as a boy. And then when they come from that place, you come to the job market, you are competing at an even level when opportunities were not given evenly. Okay? Now, this is bringing the boy or the man into a place of resentment. And now they resort to other things like the Mumama syndrome, where they find some some mama, even if they're older than them, the mama syndrome is like a young man dating an older woman, basically for economic gains.
This has happened in the society though for like since Julius Caesar conquered Rome.
It happens
on the other side of it.
Bosco, but that's what has been
right now.
Since that's what women have been experiencing since the creation. I think what you're trying to say is that, you know, I think you what you're trying to achieve by this is, I understand what you're trying to achieve, but what you're saying is really not right, and I really disagree with what you're saying. Do I agree that there's a problem about how it's being implemented? Of course, there are always problems when issues like this are being implemented. But I think your understanding of it is probably very misinformed. I'm sorry to say that, because look at it this way. Women, what you're describing or how you're feeling is the same way that women have been feeling since, I don't know, since creation. So you're negating your own point, and
Okay.
I'm sorry to say that. What you should have said instead is like something like, okay, we understand that this is going on, and we understand that we should put more women in positions of leadership, put more women to work, try to create a balanced economy, a balanced nation.
As if we are as if men are the guardians of authority. Why should we put?
Yeah.
Like by saying that we should put women, I think we are accepting that we are in positions of authority and power.
Yeah, and I also think
we to insert them in those positions. I think.
Yeah, I also think.
When I say put, I say
am advocating for neutrality. That's what I'm saying.
When I say put, I mean society. Society, we should allow, you should create those opportunities for women. I think the verbiage here is very important.
No, we don't have to create a position. We should. It's not us to do the job.
It's the society.
Model.
Okay.
We are society.
I was giving.
You made better gender appropriate. But look, I wanted to go say, I get what you guys are saying, and we have to end it in about 10 minutes or maybe less. But I think that what you just said there, I watched a documentary on Denmark recently about immigration in Denmark. And Denmark always consistently ranks highest, most friendly, most accommodative, most inclusive society in the whole world. Like they are always in top 10 since like 1960. Now they have an immigration angst about people coming in, mostly from Muslim societies who came into Europe like the last 20 years or something. And it's creating like a public anxiety in the society. In the US, the election of Donald Trump could just be flipped on what my friend Don Bosco just said. The same argument you said could just be replaced and remove the gender and put white nationalism. And you get the same outcome. It is really segregating. It is really, I think, unfortunately, and it's not to blame you or anybody, this is where the society is at. I spend a lot of time on the internet, and when you interact with young males from Africa, they talk about this kind of stuff. There is a public anxiety, and the women are the blame game. They are to be blamed for their missed opportunities. They are to be blamed for their failed relationships. They are to be blamed for their inadequacies that are sometimes traumatic and generational. But they blame them on these young women also just experiencing life in a developing society as they are. The problem here is not the women, not gender. The problem is one, a society that inculcates thoughts of dominance in which we perform dominance on females. And when we can't do that, we lash out like a 2-year-old on a tantra. So we say, oh, they're not acting right, like we want to police behavior. We want to be gatekeepers of opportunities. We don't want to transform our culture, which is at heart exclusionary. And yeah,
Uber
and
Kodero.
when we, yeah,
Maybe my parting shot here is what I'm saying. I am not excluded. I'm not ignorant of the fact that we have a problem and that we need to.
yeah.
I support women. Women play the most important part of my life. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What I am saying to us is that the procedure that we are using, or the design in which we are trying to handle the imbalance problem, is going to be halted in the future. And
yes, I agree with you on that one, Mr. Bosco.
I was just giving you signals, or I was giving you examples of what is already happening. So my basis here is that let us have a neutral ground, okay, where we are not like, because like I said before, besides gender, we are all human beings. Feminists and anybody else should advocate for equality on the basis that all of us are human beings and need to be treated equally, not considering their gender. Because if we say
in other words, all lives matter.
Yeah, because that even includes the conversation of all lives matter. Because if we are going to say that all lives matter, Black lives matter, over in the future, we are going to be at the same problem where the Black are now going, because human beings, the society is dynamic and fluid. Okay, so let us have a normal ground where we are having conversations on normal or neutral grounds, not considering whether you are a male or a female or even a transgender. That is what I'm trying.
We're gonna end it there because this conversation can be go on forever. So rather than end it on my end, I want you guys to get 30 seconds to final comments, Manzi, and then we close the show.
Yeah, I mean, I think the movement for feminism is a really great movement, but in everything that happens, I think meritocracy should supersede gender or sex. If men are efficient at bricklaying, then men deserve to be in those jobs. If females are efficient at something else, they're supposed to be in those jobs. And where equality can be exercised, it should be exercised. Because if you're being honest, there are more male bricklayers than there are females. There are more male soldiers than there are females, not because females are not being encouraged to apply, but because males naturally apply for those jobs. But if there are people out there who think that they can disqualify someone who is willing to do a certain task in the economy based on their gender, they're very wrong. And I think feminism is the way to go. Let's empower everyone. Let's support everyone. Let's open up doors to anyone who is qualified for whichever role it is that they want to. But we should also recognize, the societal, shackles of the world. Like, we understand that some people may have their own prejudices where they say because you are female you can't do this, and those elements should be rooted out and should be educated well enough to understand that gender, race, or like nationality does not equate to meritocracy above everything else. I think that's
30 seconds, Mr. Bosco.
All right, thank you. I would like to, and I'm very careful when I'm saying this. My opinion is that the feminists or the feminist movement is misguided, and they need to review their thing or their idea, because we need to look at everybody as a human being and give opportunity as a human being, not because the males have been dominating the females. I mean, we have to get beyond that past and start afresh and say, from today, we are not going to consider whether you are male or female or anybody else, but we are going to look at you as a human being. And if you are mistreated, then we are looking at it. Are you mistreated? On what basis? Are you mistreated, or somebody doesn't think that you are a human being enough? But the pointing fingers of the feminists that the males are the people who have made us like this, I think they're misguided.
Mr. Jared.
Okay, that's interesting. I feel like Bosco just said the feminism is for edit. They sent it back for edit. Anyway, what I'm trying to say, I mean, in conclusion to this, I think feminism is a great movement. It's coming too late, and it's kind of worrying that it took that long to even, you know, spark a public debate in this era that we're living. But I think it's a very important conversation that should be had. In fact, I would encourage every man out there to first recognize that they're anti-feminists. Just recognize that and accept the fact that, you know what, I'm not pro. I am personally anti-feminist. Once you recognize that you're anti-feminist, then start removing those shackles and then start your progress towards being a feminist. And also, don't just look at feminism being okay, equality of rights, equality. Don't just let it be economic, because if you dig down, scratch the surface, remove the economics out of it, if you go deep, this goes down to even the current debate that we're having now about sexuality and right to choose, you know, abortion right. This all goes in it, and it's a kind of worms if you open it. So if you're just a feminist just because you're pro economics, what about personal women rights? Are you a feminist because you say, okay, women have no job? But if you say, okay, let women have explore their sexuality as men do, then you feel, yeah, that's painful. You know, so we should include this in the package as well. And that's my point. Men should first, the first step that I recommend for all men, just say, okay, you know me, I'm an anti-feminist. Now, that be like a sinner, go to God and say, "I've sinned, Father." Then start your journey towards that, removing those long uh, norms that you've been indoctrinated in, and just make your way. And I think it's a path that all of us should be on, and we should recognize that we've benefited for a long time, and should have these discussions. I think that's how I can conclude. You know.
I'm really grateful for you guys' time. I know we have very different viewpoints, and that's okay. That's the point of this show, is to bring the issues that are bothering people in society to the fore and to explore them and talk about them. It's a safe space. We have to allow it to be. Disagreements are part and parcel of the project, and it's allowed. My positional point is this. I identify as a self-loving Black man, and I also identify as a Black male feminist. I am a feminist. I'm really invested in the agenda of pursuing equity and equality in political institutions and social institutions in the world, for us to realize economic and social development in society. I do not see any pathway towards development in any form, society, economically, politically, without 50%. I never seen it. I've never seen a society that has developed while excluding people. I've never seen it. Go show me that society, and I'll tell you it doesn't exist. We are only stronger when we include more disabled people, people who are queer, sexually, people who are speak different language, different religion. That's the world that I want. Unfortunately, for that world to happen, we have to make certain sacrifices. Some of us have to lose, and it's okay, because that's called creative destruction. Thank you guys for joining. Share this video to your friends, and have them to subscribe. And let's meet again next time for another conversation. Hopefully, a part 2 of this session. Thank you guys, and have a good day.
All right, bye bye.
Bye. Yeah.